measurement is called systolic and diastolic. So when heart your heart will beats pumping the blood, and at that time it's called the systolic blood pressure is and when heart beats off, that's a diastolic, right? And that time it's called as a diastolic. Is it a disturbance or just for me? No, right? Okay. So, highest, what is the range of high blood pressure? So, when the blood pressure is systolic blood pressure is over the 140 mmHg, and that's called the high blood pressure. And for the diastolic range is over 80 mmHg, that's called the diastolic blood pressure range. Now, types and causes of the hypertension. So, there are mainly two types of hypertension, like primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. Primary hypertension is generally is a very common and essential type of hypertension. That is generally we generally see this type of hypertension. So, the causes for this is generally aging. Then, when you get old, your chances more to get a hypertension because of stress. Obesity, heredity is also one of the cause, too much salt in the diet. So these are the causes for the primary hypertension. A secondary hypertension depends on the if you are any typical type of medication or you have a typical medical condition, then you will see the secondary hypertension. For example, like thyroid gland disorder, adrenal gland disease. And in 5 to 10% it had been observed that with the patient secondary hypertension has been observed because of kidney disease, and 1 to 2% cause is the hormonal abnormality, and sometimes also some birth control pills also create the secondary hypertension. Symptoms, generally there is no specific symptom for the hypertension, but these are the very common symptoms like headache, nausea, throw up, like nose bleeding. Okay, when you are something feeling like a choking and some inhaling the very poisonous gas, you feel like that. So now the treatment. So for the as we see the primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. For primary hypertension, you can see this the treatment doctor may prescribe like a diuretic drugs. So this type of drug is increase the excretion of the sodium and chloride. So that's the way it reducing the blood pressure. And ACE inhibitor. So here this type of is a reducing the contracting the blood vessels. And the calcium antagonist. So this drug is reduce the slow movement of the calcium deposition in the cell of your artery walls. And for secondary hypertension, generally because of the condition. So if we get rid of that condition, or if we stop the medication, then we will have come out for the secondary hypertension. Now the second part will be taken over by can be.
Hi everyone. The patient is Mr. H. He is 73 years old and he is retired. He used to be an executive in electronic industry. That's his personal background. And now let's look into the medical background. About 3 months before starting the therapy with us, the patient was diagnosed with high blood pressure. He had problems in, he had difficulty in climbing upstairs and even walking. He experienced some episodes of heavy-headedness and giddiness too. All right, this is a chart where I have tried to put together the category of blood pressure. And for example, a normal blood pressure category would involve systolic to be less than 80. And now as we go further, this chart could go to hypertensive crisis. So you have different levels here. What I would like to show here is that the patient falls in orange and red category. That is his systolic blood pressure is usually higher than 140 and diastolic is generally higher than 90. So here I would like to present this presentation in a different way, by showing you the observations of blood pressure during the therapy. Now, this approach, it's an interesting approach because not many times during therapy we do observations on patient during the therapy. Like in this particular therapy, we did in a typical therapy with this patient, we started with taking the blood pressure before the session, then after a few rounds of deep breathing, and then at the end of the full session. So 3 times readings were taken, blood pressure readings were taken. And this is the chart or the table which I would like to show. So I have shown in this presentation about 2 sessions, observations of 2 sessions. So the first one, which is before you, is when the patient started with 195 systolic blood pressure. That is even before starting the therapy. Now, I must tell you that before, on this particular day, the patient was not the patient was very frustrated. As soon as he entered, you could see it in his behavior. He was angry, and the reason behind it was he couldn't really park his car properly because of some other inconsiderate driver. So you can already see his state of mind. And the readings in the blood. Now, after let me start with the readings. So systolic blood pressure started very high at 195. The patient was we got him through some rounds of deep breathing along with some meditative music for 5 minutes, and the blood pressure actually came down to 167, the systolic blood pressure. And at the end of the full session, it was about 154. Diastolic blood pressure was 117 to start with before the session. After a few rounds of deep breathing, it was 104, and at the end, it was 101. The pulse rate started with 76 before the session, and at the end of the session, it was 65. So as you see, there's actually, the results are very clear. The therapy did work on his blood pressure. The blood pressure could, and the pulse rate could really come down. The next slide, please. Now, this is another session observation where we started with systolic blood pressure of 175. After a few rounds, it went down to 162 and end was 152. Diastolic is very interesting here because it started with 104. After a few rounds, it actually went up by 2 points, 106. And it ended lesser, much lesser. The end result was really good, 96. Now, when you think about after a few rounds of deep breathing, why wouldn't it come down? I think it was because the patient was not really de-stressed at that moment, even if the patient was lying down calm. But he still had thoughts in his mind, and there's some court cases going on and all, maybe he was thinking about all those things which were bothering him. Probably that's what I would think. So the increase in the reading could be related to some stress. Now let's move on to pulse rate, which was 70 to start with. It went down to 63 at the end of the session. So overall, at the end of the session, the therapy was fulfilling. We could achieve the results by bringing the blood pressure and the pulse rate down. Now let's move into pathogenesis, Panchakosha model. So at Annamaya Kosha, the patient felt very tired by doing normal activities like climbing stairs and even walking. Pranamaya Kosha was drained, of course. Manomaya Kosha was angry and frustrated with day-to-day affairs very easily. Like you could see that the first session, which I showed you, had 195. He was very stressed about the car parking thing. Then Vijnanamaya Kosha, the patient being a perfectionist and less tolerant to inconsiderate people around him. He would like people to follow order, and that bothers him a lot probably. So stress not only from his personal life, like his the court cases going on, but other trivial things also would bother him. And of course, at Anandamaya Kosha level, he is not peaceful because everything, such small things are also bothering him. Next slide. Therapy prescribed by doctor was heart stimulation. carotid stimulation, MSRT, head tapping, and Trataka. The immuno oil was used for heart stimulation and carotid stimulation. Next slide. Supplements were Arjuna, Ashwagandha, and Partharishtam. Let's move into reverse pathogenesis. At Annamaya Kosha level, the patient feels much better after the therapy and for that particular day. Maya Kosha level, so he feels energetic. Manomaya Kosha level, he does understand that he should not react to trivial issues, but he just can't help beyond the point. At Vijnanamaya Kosha level, he is progressing to self-train himself along with guidance from therapists. At Anandamaya Kosha level, he is progressing towards a better state of mind, but hasn't achieved it yet. Next slide. So I would like to conclude that the patient is definitely receptive to the therapy. This could become better by including pranayama in daily routine so that he can relax and calm himself better and manage his blood pressure better, along with other medication and therapy going on. That's about it. Thank you. Doctor, we can't hear you.
That was good, that how you explained about the reason why it was going up and then how it went down. So it's important to understand that impact of the mind, and how even though the therapy is on the positive side, but if the mind keeps on getting diverted on the wrong direction, how it can still create problem. And we cannot see the effect. But the moment we bring the mind into a calmer state, then we can see the Annamaya Kosha level practice into a right zone. Because this is what is lacking continuously, that with the help of tablets or with the help of other things, we are continuously thinking that, okay, carotid arteries, if they can control the blood flow going to the brain, then we are solving the problem. But in fact, we are not, because as long as the person is stressed, the sympathetic nervous system will keep on exaggerating the entire pressure back. Okay. Now, Vanilla, you can share the screen.
Doctor, could I leave? I got to fetch my kids.
No worries, please.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Niti, a small thing. It is not Vijayamaya Kosha, it is Vijnanamaya Kosha. You change the spellings. Niti?
Okay.
Vijaya. It is written Vijaya.
Okay. In somewhere we also pronounce as a Vignanamaya. It's okay, Raj. Yeah.